Welcome back to A Bite from the Money Sandwich, where we provide practical and easy to understand tips and ideas on how to manage your money better, so as to let you retire with comfort and on your own terms. I can't believe we're already in 2024, but before we bring on new guests, we wanted to take a look back at 2023. We had some amazing guests who shared their expertise across a range of different topics, and at the end of each episode, I asked them what their best piece of advice was. In today's episode, we have collected all the best pieces of advice. These are not all money related, but advice they have learned throughout their careers and lives, which have shaped them and made them the success they are today. Just some great gems and pieces of wisdom we can all learn from. To start the year, we had episode 27, where I spoke to Arena McClellan, founder of the Property Arena. Arena talked about how best to get a loan and buying property. Here is her best piece of advice.
The best piece of advice I would say is hear people, but don't choose to listen to everyone. Because you will get 100 different types of advice about one situation. People think that they know everything about something. But be a selective listener. Sometimes you need to say no to people. So hear everything, but choose what you listen to.
In episode 28, I spoke to Tim Ross, who is a senior partner and financial advisor of Henderson, Ross & Co. Financial Group in Brisbane, who I've known for years. Tim explained why it is so important to understand the different types of insurance to make sure you have the best coverage. Here is his best piece of advice.
Wow, it's a big question. But something does come to mind pretty readily. And that was that an experienced, quite wise older friend of mine made a comment to me once. I'd been asked to do something which carried a little bit of responsibility with it. And he said, if I can give you one piece of advice, he said, there'll be times in your life that you're faced with challenges, in particular in the way that you deal with people. And you may not know quite what the right answer is or what the best thing is to do. He said, but if you treat people with kindness and care and allow that to be the dominant attitude that you display, even when you're in a bit of a crisis situation, then you can never go wrong.
In episode 29, I spoke to Amanda Casa, the co-founder and sole director of Wealth Planning Partners. Amanda talked about what she loves most about being a financial advisor and her work outside of her business helping others. Here is her best piece of advice.
Probably to invest in yourself. I'm an absolute massive fan of lifelong learning. I think I'd probably shrivel up if I didn't continue to learn. And I do invest heavily in my own education. The leadership programs that I did with the Hunger Project and Hands Across the Water were food for the soul. I'm not sure how else to put it. I invest in Strategic Coach and go overseas for coaching sessions every quarter. I'm a happy member of MDRT and invest in going to their annual meetings every year to learn from, financial advisors all around the world who are happy to share their tips on how they look after their clients. I'm an avid reader. I cannot go to bed at night without reading. So I think investing in yourself is probably the wisest investment you can make to continue to learn and grow and, just want to become a better person.
In episode 30, I spoke to Luke Mathers, a top stress expert and performance coach. Luke talked about the importance of understanding stress and how to embrace the good, but most importantly, how to stop letting the bad stress stick. Here is his best piece of advice.
I think the biggest one for me is to ask yourself, is the world a better place because you're in it?
Right.
And if the answer is no, do something positive, do something to help someone. And if the answer is no, probably think again because you're not looking at it properly. If the answer is still no, go out and do something to contribute. Go out and help someone. Go out and do something good in the world. And do it because you want to do it, not to feel good about yourself. But the offset will be you'll feel good about yourself too.
In episode 31, I spoke to Kim Huckabee, founder of the Wellbeing Effect. Kim talked about what mental health encompasses and the importance to understand how to recognize the signs and help those around you. Here was her best piece of advice.
Okay, can I have two?
Oh, of course you can. You absolutely can have two.
Okay, cool. Because there was something I was going to say earlier and we didn't get a chance, so I'm putting it into this final bit. So the one bit of advice that I always give to people is around help seeking. Because I think often, I mean, how many times have you heard from someone where they've said, oh, yeah, I tried that counselling thing once and it's not for me?
Yeah.
You know, where someone might have had a really negative experience in the past, or again, whatever that barrier is. And I always say to people that trying to find someone to talk to is like trying to find a good pair of shoes or a good pair of jeans. Sometimes you need to try a few before you find one that fits.
Okay.
And I think that that bit of advice often empowers people just to go, you know what, I've given this person a go. We've had a few sessions. Something's just not gelling. You know, that connection is so important for any kind of recovery. And so, yeah, if it's just not working for you, please don't think that counseling or therapy or talking to someone isn't for you. It just might mean that that person isn't for you. And that's okay. So please just make sure that you reach out and try and find someone else.
Yep.
So that's my first bit. And my second one is just something that my mum and my grandma, and for years, you know, we've just always talked about this. And I just thought, because life is just so tough right now. And, you know, things change every minute, hour, day, week, month, year. And I just think that something that has been ingrained in me since I was a little kid is that when things are good, we need to put our arms around them. We need to wrap around us the things that are good, take stock, pause, reflect, be grateful, because things can change. Maybe they won't, but when things are good, we just need to embrace them. And I do often, you know, everybody has stuff that goes on in their life. I certainly have. And I know that when things are good, I am mindfully, you know, if someone calls me and they go, how are you? And I'm like, you know what, actually, they're good. And I'm owning that today. You know, don't know how much longer it's going to last for. Don't know if I'm going to get a call from school and something's going to, but, you know, I don't know what's going to happen next. But when things are good, we just need to, just to embrace it.
In episode 32, I spoke to Danny Masevsky, founder of MCO Chartered Tax and Financial Advisors. Danny explained why speaking to an accountant or tax advisor is something we should all do. Here is his best piece of advice.
For myself, the biggest one that we've taken many years ago, I think someone rattled off and said, it's not what you earn, they said, it's what sticks to your fingers. And I always remember that. And saving the first dollars from the net pay rather than what's left over after you've spent everything, right? Just very simple principles. And the big one for AMCO, how we've developed AMCO, there was a statement that a statement made by, I think it was Abraham Maslow, if I remember correctly, Abraham. And it said, if the only tool we have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And that always resonates for me as far as AMCO, in order to make it as broad and as relevant as possible to handle clients' needs, as opposed to having a very narrow focus. And I never forget that saying, you know, if all you've got is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. And that just continues to resonate.
That's just relevant. That's just, I really like that. But the sticky fingers, one of my favorite books is The Richest Man in Babylon. And I think that's exactly the same thing. One of its great quotes is very much, you know, a part of all you earn is yours to keep. And people just don't, people get salaries and they just disappears. And they don't realize, and, you know, what sticks is yours. No, I really like that quote. In episode 33, I spoke to Jackie Lane, owner of The Book Advisor. Jackie talked about the process of how to write a book, and that's not just writing a manuscript, but finding your audience and the importance of marketing the book as well as yourself. Here is her best piece of advice.
I think, and I was thinking about this, the best piece of advice I received was from my mother when I was quite young, and it sounds corny in a way, but she said, don't judge people by the way they look. And it's always kind of stuck with me, because everybody deserves respect and kindness. and until such time as they maybe don't. But it's quite hard to live that, because we automatically, tend to associate with similar people all the time. But I was reminded of it. I became the founding chairman of a charity called the Footpath Library many years ago. And the charity still exists, and we give books to homeless and needy people on the streets and in hostels.
Okay.
And I used to go down to Woolloomooloo every Tuesday night, and we literally put books out on the footpath. And homeless people would come around and pick up the books, and we'd start conversations with them. And they certainly looked homeless, and they smelt homeless, and a whole bunch of things. And you can never know somebody else's journey or someone else's story, and everybody deserves kindness and respect.
That's really something well worth to live your life by. That's I really like that, Jackie. Thank you. I just saw something on Instagram about you only get 7 seconds to make a good first impression, but I just thought that's just stupid. How can you get to really know someone in 7 seconds? I get the whole what they look like first off and all that, but I think those words which your mum said to you make so much sense.
Look, I mean, and that's probably right, because subconsciously that's what we all do. So just being aware of that, I think, is really what I'm saying, is that don't necessarily assume. Because I met a homeless person who'd been homeless for 3 years, and he was homeless because they were from Melbourne. His son had to come up to Sydney for medical treatment. They sold their house, did that. The marriage split up. His son was still in hospital, and he had no money. And he had been an art teacher for 25 years. And here he was homeless on the street, and we ended up talking about a book he picked up, an art book. And we ended up having this long conversation about illustrating and art. And that's when he said, well, actually, I was a teacher for 20, and I heard a story, and I'm thinking, and I walked away thinking, just do not judge people until you talk to them and know them.
In episode 34, I spoke to Hassan Masouli, a leading executive chef in Australia. Hassan tells his story of coming to Australia and his latest venture, which Hassan and his wife Neshman run luxury culinary tours around Morocco, offering a local's perspective and the chance to prepare traditional dishes with him, including one in the Sahara Desert. Here is his best piece of advice.
Oh, look, man, there's so many of things that you can talk about and advise people with it. But again, that there is, I can never forget a word I heard before about some people live 70 years and some people live one time 70. They live 1 year 70 times. I mean, you can't sit in comfortable zone in your life. It doesn't matter if you got money or you don't have it and keep doing the same thing. You're gonna get out and experience the unknown, the mystery. Could be traveling, it could be anything like that in your life, because we can't scare from tomorrow. We have to prepare ourselves, and tomorrow is the beauty of our journey. It's the unknown. You don't want to repeat yourself. You just want to have your life always going with new things, and you're ready to take it. There is good and bad. It's like the weather, but live the moment, travel as much as you can. Have a list, like bucket list of what you want to do. And I started that when I had my bucket list, starting with, I want to go to the unknown place. And I did it. You want to have a restaurant, you do it. And there is nothing can be difficult in life until you experience it. You got nothing to lose.
In episode 35, I spoke to Shannon Nutter, who is Principal Executive Consultant at Vanguard Australia. Shannon speaks about Vanguard's latest report, How Australia Retires, and the main takeouts of that report. Here was her best piece of advice.
That's a great question. I would say something that was told to me early in my career that really has stuck with me all these years was this. Someone had said to me, you don't get what you don't ask for.
Right.
And it is simple enough. You still might not get it.
Mm.
You might get told no, but you're definitely going to get told yes more if you at least speak up and ask for what you want. And so, yeah, that's probably the best piece I've ever gotten.
In episode 36, I spoke to Dominic Cavagnino, who is head of research and acquisition at Benari Property. Dom talked all things property and shares the current market trends he is seeing across Australia. Here was his piece of advice.
Look, I'm probably a bit conservative by nature, and one of the things that I was told was to doing something will always be better than doing nothing. And I often see it with clients, whether they purchase a property through us or they purchase a property on their own or they purchase a property using another buyer's agent. That doesn't really matter to us, but what we do know is that doing something will always be better than doing nothing. So I think sometimes just about being a bit braver in regardless of what you're hearing in the media, and actually taking action is really important, and that's worked out for me. So
no, that's great. And yeah, a lot of people, unfortunately, they do procrastinate, and you wonder why you're procrastinating on your future happiness or future security. So no, that's a really good one. In episode 37, I spoke to Peter Hogg, who is Aware Super's head of advice, experiences and enhancements. Peter spoke about all things superannuation and retirement. Here is his best piece of advice.
Yeah, look, I feel like it's sort of embedded in the way I talk about superannuation and financial advice. Like, I think the concept of just taking that first leap, that first step, that first move towards something, and whether that's in your career, in life, in investing, I think it's such a good one. It's always the hardest one, but that first small step just can open your eyes and help you learn. And before you take that next big step, that first step just helps you start the journey. As I said, life, career, investing. I'm a big believer in just taking that first small step and getting into it and seeing where things go from there.
And to finish the year, in episode 38, I spoke to Amy Baker, a financial advisor, money mindset coach, podcast, and founder of Sensibility. Amy talked about the value of advice and how understanding your money mindset is crucial, as your views on money could come from your childhood. Here is her best piece of advice.
Yeah, I think my best advice is life is not a dress rehearsal. And we've got to really enjoy every moment. And that's another trick with the mindset is it's really easy to fall into, the stress of the world. And, every day it's the grind of getting up and working and, and worrying about whether you're going to have enough for retirement or worrying about the kids' education or whatever it is where you are in your timeline. But remember that you've got to enjoy it and make your memories.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. To hear the full episodes of any of the guests from 2023, listen on your platform of choice or watch the full interviews on YouTube. If you have any questions or want to know more, feel free to email me on admin@themoneysandwich.com or visit our website, themoneysandwich.com. As with every podcast, this information is not advice, as not personalised to your own situation. And past performance is never guaranteed for the future. What we are trying to do here is to provide tips, coaching and education to help improve your money knowledge, which we believe can only be a good thing. See you next time when we take another bite from the Money Sandwich.